How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the First Ones to Die. I am here with my two fabulous co-hosts, Jonathan and Alex, and of course, I am also Jerome. And today we're going to be reviewing Wonder Woman 84, the new movie from the DC Universe and Warner Brothers. So stay tuned, grab a snack, grab a drink. It's going to be a minute. We got a lot to say, and we hope you have a lot to listen to what we have to say. So, you know how it goes. Hit the music.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the First Ones to Die podcast. I am Jonathan. I'm here with my co-hosts, Alex and Jerome. Say what up.
Hey.
What's up? You said say what's up.
I mean, we're reviewing something that was set in the 80s. So
exactly. So it's fitting.
Technically appropriate. We'll let it go.
Well, today we are going to be reviewing the Cheetah Girls from Disney. Wonder Woman 1984.
I won't lie, I'd be down to rewatching that.
You might understand that reference if you watched the whole movie, but yeah, we're gonna get into it.
Firstly, sorry, real quick. For those who because this is the First Ones to Die, some of you might not have listened to our Behind the Usher Station stuff. So let it be known now. We're going to do a little bit of a piece that's non-spoilers. So if you haven't seen Wonder Woman 84 yet, you want to just get some quick impressions. We're going to do that real quick, and then after that, it's going to be no bars held, all spoilers. So if you want to hear the rest of the podcast, but you don't want Wonder Woman spoiled for you, I would say pause this, go check it out, then come back, and enjoy the rest of the show. Come listen to what we had to say. But you've been fairly warned. All right, go ahead, Jonathan. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you for keeping the people updated. They appreciate that very much. On behalf of the people, I will let you know they appreciate that. So first things first, going into Wonder Woman 1984, what were your expectations? What did you think? We're in this new day and age where everything's going to be streaming, at least for the next year, most likely, if these studios want to make money. What were your expectations going into Wonder Woman 1984? I'll start with Alex.
Well, I think my expectations were set a little lower because usually sequels aren't that great, and it's always kind of challenging, especially when it's something like how Wonder Woman was. It was so good and so powerful, especially from a female standpoint and then a fan standpoint and all this. It was just all around good, and it didn't feel like when you watch Batman and Superman again, where it's oh, okay, another movie about them. This felt new and different, and it was dark and light at the same time. And when they did the sequel, it had the same vibe to it. It had this really dark element, but then it also had this really positive energy, and it weirdly reflected the 80s so well, because a lot of the times when people are portraying the 80s in movies, it is super big hair, hairspray, giant phones, colorful, but Wonder Woman was actually dressed nicely. She didn't look like something that came out of a horrible 80s film or anything like that. She actually, or something, that was made to look like the 80s. She actually had nice fashion, and so did her other coworkers and stuff. So it had a more realistic vibe to it too, and I think that helped it. So my expectations were kind of low just because I wanted to enjoy it, but they were met and exceeded, I think, for me.
Okay, and how about you, Jerome?
I want to start by showing this right now. Hold on. I don't know if y'all can see it because of the light. That's Wonder Woman Dead Earth. First of all, if you haven't read it, read this book. It's so good. The art is fantastic. Secondly, that should tell you everything you need to know. I was excited for this one. Wonder Woman is my favorite DC character right now. For a long time when I was a kid, it was Batman. I feel like for a lot of young boys, because of the Batman animated series, and young girls too.
No, I have a problem with Batman.
But except Alex. But
Will not start.
And then but it shifted to Wonder Woman for me because it's just like I felt like she was fierce, she was strong, but at the same time she had, I think for me, the best of both worlds as I grew older, of just being this hero who is, yes, all about truth, justice, and saving the day, but also not afraid to get her hands a little dirty. She'll pull out the sword and shield if she has to. So I appreciate that aspect. And so the first movie was really good. Patty Jenkins did a great job. I wasn't sure what Gal Gadot was still more or less an unknown. The only thing I'd ever seen her in before that was Fast and Furious. So I wasn't sure how she's gonna adjust to the role. And I guess she was in Batman v Superman too, but she didn't really do much. So she did a great job. So I was expecting her to kind of come in here and do some, do a lot of the same things. I was expecting Patty Jenkins to do some great things as well. However, I will say, at the same time, I was still a little hesitant too, because I wasn't sure how they were going to balance out. Like Wonder Woman doesn't exactly she's not like Batman, who has this like huge rogues gallery of iconic villains that you just know. Like she doesn't have like a Penguin, a Joker, a Riddler, whatever. Honestly, her villains are more or less, I think off the top of my head, the ones that come to mind are like Circe, Cheetah, and Ares. And Ares was in the first movie. They haven't gotten to Circe yet, which I am excited to see if they ever do get to Circe. And they did Cheetah for this movie, but Cheetah is like, small time. So I wasn't sure how they were going to do the
I feel like that's a spoiler. They didn't actually name the villain in previews and stuff, man.
She looks in the trailer. She looks like a cheetah woman.
And I mentioned Cheetah Girls, so.
And also you mentioned Cheetah Girls.
Fine. Fine.
But but everybody, that's it's nonetheless. I had some high hopes. We'll get into I'll get into my thoughts later on in the review, but definitely at the start I had a lot of high hopes for this movie.
I was kind of indifferent. I watched the first movie in IMAX in its full glory, how it's quote unquote supposed to be watched. I just watched it as another movie, and I know like that's not the popular opinion. It wasn't the first Wonder Woman speaking. It wasn't as memorable as it was for a lot of people. For me, it wasn't as memorable. But I was excited to watch it on HBO Max because of the platform, because this is something brand new that we're doing, putting out a movie, a huge superhero movie on a streaming platform the same day it releases in theaters in some areas. So I think overall I was just excited about the experience rather than the movie itself. Mm-hmm. But spoiler alert, when we get to the actual movie,
I was like, wait a minute.
When we get to the actual movie, no, this is a spoiler for my opinion. This ain't a spoiler for the movie.
Oh,
I actually loved it. So,
yeah. I will say what they did right. At least HBO Max did. They didn't charge people extra for the movie, like they did with Mulan. And a lot of people were pissed at Disney for doing that, because Mulan wasn't even such a big movie, a big title they had created. A lot of people, even before the movie was sent out, were like, we don't want to see it because of what happened with the actress and the Hong Kong police. And then seeing previews and cuts from it, seeing like just it seemed to distort Mulan's story. And I actually talked to a coworker about it. The more I heard about it, I was like, this is even more awful, because one of the scenes I loved in Mulan was the ancestor part, and apparently that's not even in there anymore. She meets some random witch. I don't know what's with Disney and random witches in the woods. People need to stop going in the woods. But like with HBO Max and Wonder Woman, they let it out. They just were like, look, here, times are hard. Just enjoy. Find enjoyment.
But if you notice next to the press play button, it says available for 31 days.
I mean, that's pretty good compared to that's
it's not a
being in
month.
theaters.
I know, but I didn't realize that it was gonna only be available for a limited time, which is it's not a caveat, I guess, but it's just an interesting. They didn't really have to put that in there, but I'm glad they're warning people that look, you better watch this movie because time's running out.
I mean that is fair because suddenly they could have just thrown in a charge. But I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, it is like more. I don't actually know how long movies tend to be in theaters. When working at the IMAX, we always had some weird schedule. We had movies that would only be there for a weekend.
Mhm.
Well, because it depends on the theater and it depends on the movie. Because if it's like a successful movie, some theaters will keep a movie in a theater for like 6 months. But if it's because it's really successful, and I think Cats, for example, was only in theaters for like 3 weeks, and then it was dropped because it just was not making money, and that's a theater.
Speaking
Crazy.
of streaming
This
on
is the
HBO
only
Max,
real cat that should be.
Cats is also streaming on HBO Max.
That is true. I couldn't get through the first 5 minutes, but I think that's because nobody was watching it with me. I need y'all to help. Y'all come with me and watch Cats.
There's a documentary about flat earthers on Netflix. I watched like 11 minutes of it and I couldn't get through it. So on my birthday, when I went over to Lauren's house like last year, I asked her and Cameron and Cameron's cousin and their roommate to watch it with me, and I was able to sit through the whole 45 minutes. And yeah, flat earthers are a little insane. I get where they're coming from, but like they're just kind of crazy too. But anyway, we're off track. Wonder Woman.
Going from flat Earth to saving the Earth, Wonder Woman in 1984. So let's get into everybody's thoughts on the movie itself.
I think this is where we should administrate though. Spoiler warning, because as we begin to talk, we'll probably end up spilling scenes and stuff.
Before we get into spoilers, just generic thoughts without spoilers, just so people get an impression. What do you think?
Okay. I did like the scenes at the beginning that showed when she was originally on the island. I thought they were a good like introduction to the film. However, sometimes it felt like it was a little bit on the nose to the story, and that kind of bothers me sometimes in films. It's like, oh, look into the past, you get this lesson, and then it's like when you read a book and like you're reading a book about like witches, because now that's in my head, and the character learns a specific spell in the first chapter. They have difficulties, they learn the spell, and now for a fact that spell's probably going to be like the most important thing and how they're going to win near the end of the book. So I don't really enjoy that because it kind of feels like, well, I already know how it's going to play out because of that. So even though I did like it and I did think there was a significance to it, I thought it was just not really a foreshadow, but more of a like, this is what's going to happen. Don't worry. She'll learn her lesson. Especially about like truth and justice. Which, yeah. What about you guys?
I thoroughly enjoyed it from beginning to almost end. This is my thing in movies. The end is either going to grab me more or it's going to lose me. And this ending did not necessarily lose me, but towards the end, I don't think I was as invested as I was in the beginning and central part of the movie. But I really enjoyed it. I loved the fact that it was set in 1984, the 80s period. I love when, especially a superhero movie, can be dynamic and it can set itself apart from the other superhero movies. Because watching all of these superhero movies, you guys may know and others may know, I am not necessarily, I'll watch them, but I'm not necessarily like gung-ho about them. I'm not the first one to see them in line. So with movies like Logan, where it's an action, R-rated adventure movie, along with being a superhero movie, with Shazam, where it's a comedy as well as a superhero movie, and Wonder Woman 1984, where
was Shazam a superhero movie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, Oh wait, no, sorry, I'm thinking
You're
about
thinking of Kazam
Yeah.
Kazam. Yeah,
with
no,
McNeil O'Neill.
yeah,
Yeah.
Shaq. Anyway, go on.
And with Wonder Woman, where you have elements of like 1980s comedy, somewhat rom-com, and also a superhero movie, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I like the fact that they leaned somewhat into the comedy of it all. How about you, Jerome?
I will say, firstly, I do like the movie. I think it's beautifully shot. I've out of all the, because they're still trying, for some reason they're still trying to keep up the whole Zack Snyder DC universe side, mostly because everybody liked Wonder Woman and Aquaman, so and those two exist in that universe. But that being said, compared to the humdum, like drab look of those movies, this movie just pops as soon as the first screen comes on. Like, you see the ocean blue of Paradise Island and everything. Like, it just looks beautiful from start to finish. And they just one up themselves with every scene of making the movie look that much more beautiful. I think the acting is really well done. I thought everybody did pretty decent. I'll go into more elaboration later. And I also liked the message of the movie. That being said, though, I do think it slows down for a bit in the middle. And I think it's because they just have a lot of plots going on at the same time. And so they need time to explain everything. And so because of that, the movie drags a bit in the middle for me. That's, I get where they're coming from because it's like a lot to juggle. And I think the other thing why it drags is also because the movie is 2.5 hours long. Like, I did not expect because Wonder Woman 1 is, I think it's just shy of being 2 hours. So it's a pretty short movie. It goes by.
Once like a superhero film gets popular, they always make it 2.5 hours long, which is also why I like that it was like I could stream it from my home because I had to get up multiple times and do stuff. So I was getting antsy.
Yeah, I was doing my bedtime night routine in the bathroom while I was watching this on my iPad.
But it's just, it was so I think, for me personally, I still do enjoy the movie. I just don't, I wouldn't say that I enjoy it more than Wonder Woman 1. I think Wonder Woman 1 is the better film for me, as far as impact, as far as telling its story. It just feels like it flows faster and flows better. But there's a lot of great moments in this movie, though, that really work. I think the 80s setting really works, especially for Wonder Woman, where, like, there's a lot of references to the 80s Wonder Woman TV show that I really appreciated because I was like, hey, I know that show. So that's really cool. So overall, those are my thoughts.
I will say this, jumping to the actors, I did not enjoy Kristen Wiig in this film.
I was gonna get. I wanted to say that for the spoilers, but I just. But well, I agree. I agree entirely.
Just saying it without the spoilers and everything. I think they probably could have chosen. She played that character, sweet and nerdy, who, dreams of being all beautiful her whole life, jealous of girls like that, and then has a chance and goes crazy. That's a very common role for women in films. But like Kristen Wiig, it honestly felt that entire part of her character was something I've seen in SNL before. Like it did not feel like with Gail, she gets really into her role, and you feel she's Wonder Woman. She's really Wonder Woman. But when Kristen Wiig was trying to play this like angry part of her character, it didn't feel really angry. You didn't feel like her frustration. It didn't get serious in that moment. She still had this like comical sense. And honestly, it's not, she didn't feel right for this role. Maybe for the first half, kind of, but even still, it's this like intense comedy, and it just felt like she was just doing another SNL skit, doing another comedy romance movie, doing another movie where she's this, I'm low self-esteem, sad, my life doesn't go the way I want it to, and I need the attention of somebody else, or I need to feel empowered by changing how I look. Like that seems to be a very common role she plays in. And I guess that the character, yes, does mimic that. But the strength the character is showing nearing the end, I don't feel like Kristen Wiig portrays that well enough. So I didn't enjoy her in this film. I felt like maybe I can't think of like another actress that may have been better, but like I think they probably could have found somebody else.
I do. Charlize Theron. Charlize Theron would have dominated that role as Cheetah. I think she would have been a great Cheetah.
What do you think, Jonathan?
I don't have. I feel like I don't have enough. Experience with
Charlize. Disrespect Charlize.
I don't have enough experience with her work. I haven't seen a lot of her work, so I don't know if I could necessarily be the best judge of that.
I'm basing a lot of that idea mostly around Atomic Blonde, the action movie she did, and Mad Max Fury Road. Where especially Mad Max, where she is sympathetic and you feel her plight, but at the same time, she can flip that switch and be like on and be this action, like intense powerhouse too. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's kind of who she. Well, I'll get into it later. But
okay,
I see what you're saying, because there's a moment when the character turns like really hard and she's rejecting basically the last of her humanity. Kristen Wiig doesn't have that hard face.
Mm-hmm.
She has a very gentle face, which there's nothing wrong with, and I think she is a badass in her career. I mean, she's gone so far, and she's a great actress. Don't get me wrong, but she doesn't have a hard, cold face. And Charlize Theron, yeah, you're right, she does. She can do that. She even played in that movie, the Snow White and the Huntsman.
Mm-hmm.
And there were moments where she was able to soften the queen part, and then she was, she brought in that stole where she was just like, no, what I want is all I want. Screw everybody else, it's beauty and power. That's all I want. Which kind of mimicked Cheetah a little bit. She wanted beauty and power. And I think, yeah, Kristen Wiig just doesn't have that facial expression to convey the coldness and dropping of humanity. She's too human. I don't know if that makes sense, but she's too human.
Go ahead, Jonathan. I'm sorry.
Were you? Because I was gonna say we might as well delve into spoilers at this point.
That is what
that's what I was trying to say earlier.
Yeah. So at this point, if you're gonna hop off, thank you for joining us. But if you're gonna continue on, this is your spoiler warning. You've probably watched the movie at this point, so continue on and join the discussion with us. Jerome, what were you gonna say? Feel free to spoil away.
So what I was gonna say is,
I like how you give it to Jerome first, because he's ready to burst at the seams. He wants to critique particular scenes, and it too.
That I do, but I will save those for later. Right now, mostly what I wanted to say about Cheetah, and what I thought was going to be interesting, because originally Cheetah was just like a generic villain. The most interesting thing they've done with Cheetah recently is that she used an archaeologist, which they did keep that, who just finds like an ancient artifact that turns her into a cheetah woman. And in an effort to reverse it, she tries to like seek power and do other things. And Wonder Woman feels for her, because she's like, I get it. Like, you didn't mean to do this to yourself. It's an accident. But I can't let you kill people. So, rock in a hard place. And I thought that that's what they were going to do with this character, where it's Kristen, like, even when they announced that Kristen Wiig was going to play this character, I was like, Kristen Wiig as a villain in a superhero movie? Like, she's a good actress, she does well in comedies and can do really well in dramas. I loved her in Skeleton Twins.
That's right. Yeah, she was great in that.
Yeah, she was really good in that. And so, but I just feel like here, and this is what I'm talking about, where I'm like, they're juggling a lot, is like, you don't spend enough time with Barbara before she makes the wish with the stone to get to know her, for her switch to be evil to feel like it's earned. It feels like she's like, doing good. She's doing all right. And then she just instantaneously starts beating a man to death or near death, I guess. And while it's justified because he's, trying to sexually assault her,
Yeah, no.
and he's done it before, it's one of those things where you've never seen Barbara be like even show a hint of violence. And it reminded me of what's it called? Is it Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman in Batman Returns?
Maybe.
Michelle,
I don't remember.
Catwoman in Batman Returns, I think it's Michelle Pfeiffer. She has a bit, she is you spend a lot of time with her as timid Selena Kyle. So when she dies and the cats bring her back and she has this kind of they don't just instantly give her the costume and now she's Catwoman. Like she takes some time in her apartment to kind of show off her sexy side and she's changing and she's becoming a different person. With Barbara, she makes the wish instantaneously. She puts the skirt down and now she's hot. And now she's, get all this tension and stuff. And I feel like the movie just moves really fast like that with a lot of plot points. And I'm only harping on Cheetah because I feel like Cheetah is kind of the prime example.
I will also say this about the Cheetah character that kind of bothered me is that so I kind of, for me, I did not get a lot of attention, that's kind of what I wanted. I didn't want to get attention. So for somebody like that, and for somebody who's not used to getting attention as she claimed to be, having attention thrown on you is automatically uncomfortable, even if it's coming from somebody very attractive to normal to ugly. Doesn't matter what, even a small kid paying attention to you gets a little weird sometimes because it's you're very focused on me and I'm not used to this. I don't know how to handle it. It's very uncomfortable for me. It didn't seem weird to her. It didn't seem uncomfortable. All of a sudden she was like, oh yeah, give me all this attention. I totally want it. When in reality, if you have been somebody like this, like me and people I've known, the moment you get attention, you're just automatically confused, uncomfortable, and then you maybe start to delve into it a little more. But that character wouldn't have reacted the way she did. Yeah. The timidness doesn't leave instantly when somebody's talking to you right away or remembers your name. You're just kind of confused. You're what are we're not friends. Why are you talking to me? Mm-hmm. We didn't build this bond. So I always thought that was a little weird too in the film where she just instantly dove into the popularity, and it's no, if you really have been unpopular, dismissed your whole life, you wouldn't jump into it this way. You would be confused, worried, cautious, and then probably more drop into it. So I feel a big chunk of her character ended up just going missing.
Yeah. I actually to talk about both your guys' points. Jerome, I actually did like Kristen Wiig in the movie, but now that I'm talking with you guys, I'm thinking maybe I just think I liked the idea of Kristen Wiig in the movie more than I actually liked her in the movie. Don't get me wrong, I did like Kristen Wiig in the movie, but I think I liked her more in kind of the first half of it. And when I talked at the beginning that I was kind of lost towards the end of the movie, maybe that was the reason why. Maybe her performance factored into that. I don't know. But in acting and stuff, they always say that comedy is much harder than drama because there are comedic beats that you have to follow, and there are specific things that comedy requires that drama doesn't. Not that drama isn't hard, because they both are, but comedy, there's just such a specific thing that you have to do in order to get a laugh. And Kristen Wiig does that very well. And I feel like the beginning half of the movie, she did that perfectly and to a T. I feel like this type of role is best suited for someone who is used to comedy, because they can play that awkward type of person and it can be believable, especially with Kristen Wiig's style of comedy. I think she plays that very well. Mm-hmm. But now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if I 100% believed her when she did turn evil. That might be due to like either the acting or the storyline. As you were saying, it was just like she flipped her personality on a dime. And one of the things that I thought about when I was watching the movie was like, is she really going to let the entire world be destroyed because she wanted to be cool? Is
See,
this
and
where we're
that's
gonna?
what I'm talking about. Where I'm like, I don't like the character you presented. Yes, she seems like the type of person where she would want to be popular, and she's like, I'm finally popular. Like, I don't want to lose that. But you didn't display this person as a person who's selfish enough to want to be okay with the
Well,
world basically being destroyed.
I think that's what they were
for
trying
her
to
own
convey is, and
wants.
that's what she lost. She lost her humanity, she lost her caring, she lost her love, and all that stuff. But I think they didn't convey it enough because it was less of a physical thing. With like Wonder Woman, she was losing her powers because she got Steve back. With her, it
Natural
was just,
Lord lost his health.
it was just more her warmth, and it's just like I think I like more the idea of her from the original comics of just getting her power and like almost by mistake on an archaeological dig or by that, because also it's a little weird she turned into a cheetah. Like again, she's like, oh yeah, I want to be an apex predator, but like, did you really want to be some furry running around?
See, and that's the thing I also
And also,
questioned
yeah, you
too.
didn't need to have a tail.
Well,
Honestly.
because she
Yeah,
leaves, like
the tail
she
took me
walks
by
out the
storm. I
room.
thought it was just a bodysuit at first, but I saw the
No,
tail.
Technically she turns into a furry.
like she was supposed to turn into a cheetah. Like, because when they announced that she was going to be a cheetah, I was like, okay, but is she going to be really cheetah? Because that's a weird sell. Like, cheetah in the comics is like full cheetah person. So how are you going to sell that in this kind of realistic DC movie? And they don't. It's just Kristen Wiig is in normal clothing. She walks out the door, and the next time you see her, she's just got full cheetah costume.
Well, they try to hint at it, because when she first meets Wonder Woman, she's like, "Oh, I like your cheetah boots," and then as the more she progresses into like her character, she's wearing that cheetah fur. But like the thing is, I think they could have done more, not as changing Kristen Wiig into this full-on humanoid thing, but like just having her have the eyes of the cheetah, because that's what changed. She got better vision, like having the fangs and kind of having more the actual like specific things that make the cheetah like an apex predator, like its speed, like its claws, like its teeth, and like its good eyesight, instead of putting her into this weird humanoid where she kind of looks like one of the characters in Thundercats, honestly.
She actually does look like Chitara. She looks a lot like
Chitara. There we go.
For real.
like right away I thought that. I'm like, she looks like a Thundercat. Like, I'm not scared of this creature. She looks like a Thundercat. Like, I expect her to pull out a sword and point it toward the sky. That is what I'm waiting for now.
Not to, I think my last thing on Cheetah, because I know we have a lot. This movie
we've been harping on
we have a lot
Cheetah,
to talk about. But my last thing on Cheetah, though, especially when it came to the costume, is I feel like it would have been cool if maybe like the monkey paw for her was that she was slowly turning into a cheetah woman. I don't know if that would have fixed the movie, but at least it would have felt like
that goes
more natural.
Back to the whole like. But she wanted to be more like Wonder Woman. Had she wished to be more, had she like hold the stone and been like, yeah, I wish I was more like.
I think if she said like, I want to be more fierce or something like that, maybe that would have made it. That would have justified it. I don't know. I don't know what they could have done.
Also, isn't a more powerful apex predator technically a bear?
Probably, but they knew they were doing Cheetah.
Snow was very upset that I'm guessing
cats. How dare you talk smack about
very upset. I think a better apex predator is a bear, but that's a whole nother discussion.
The other thing that I was gonna say, kind of going off of the cheetah discussion, you mentioned, Jerome, that in the middle it kind of lost you because there were so many storylines. I actually wrote down that one of the reasons why I like this movie was because there were not a lot of storylines, and it seemed like there was just one consistent storyline that I could follow. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
So what I meant by there's a lot of storylines is we have like once we hit, because the beginning is pretty straightforward. You start with the action scene in Paradise Island, then we get the action scene in the mall. That was really cool, by the way. I thought it was like watching a Saturday morning cartoon. I really appreciated that, especially because it's the '80s, where it's like, the '80s super hokey. So I like that the opening was like fun and playful. But still Wonder Woman. Like, it reminded me of watching like the Linda Carter Wonder Woman series back in the day. And then after that, we go right into the story, and we have Kristen Wiig, and she's got Cheetah going on. Wonder Woman is lonely, and then Steve Trevor shows up. Maxwell Lord is making wishes, and that's going on. Then it slowly, and then after that, I was like, okay, these are 3 subplots or 3 plots that are all going to converge at some point. Cool. But they don't until much, much later. Because for a while, it's Diana and Steve, and they're on their own adventure, kind of doing their own thing. And occasionally they call Barbara, but for the most part, she's doing her own things with Cheetah, where she's discovering her powers for the first time. So we got to dive time to that. They don't find Maxwell Lord for a while. So meanwhile, we got to diverge time to him so we can see what he's doing over there at all these other places. And it's not so much that there's too many subplots. I think that was the wrong, because nobody else.
I was about to mute your mic out.
I think I might have to for a little. She's going to sleep. It's fine.
It's not so. I think the problem isn't so much that there's too many subplots. I think that was maybe the wrong wording. It's more that because the different plots don't feel like they're all happening together. You have to. That's why this movie's 2.5 hours long, because everybody's so separated from each other that you have to show what's going on or you'd be lost. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, that takes up a lot of time in the movie. Because I was like, man, they hit a point where in the middle of the movie, I was like, Diana hasn't put on that Wonder Woman suit in a long time. Like, we are just like,
she's enjoying her time with Steve.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things where I was like, it makes me think of Wonder Woman 1, right? We have the few action scenes at the beginning. Then Steve shows up. And then we have a little bit of time where Steve and Wonder Woman are traveling and she's learning about the world. But it does not take long before we get back into the action. We're back in World War I, and we're in it. And it's going. In this movie, it takes a while before we get to the point of it's like we got to hang out with Steve. We got to spend some time with Barbara. We got to find out what Maxwell Lord's doing. We got to go back to Steve because we also got to explain how Steve's back. And kind of, that sort of thing. Then we got to go back to Barbara because Barbara's investigating. Then we got to go back to Maxwell Lord. And it's like, by the time we get to the action sequence with the trucks and everything, I was like, how much more time? We got a whole hour left? I feel like we've already watched like an hour of this movie. And, again, it's like, it's not inherently bad. It's just one of those things where I was like, I feel like some of this could have been cut down, or you should have maybe had one villain instead of having both.
I agree and don't agree, but there are just parts where I think they intertwine their storyline just to have it intertwine enough. Like when Wonder Woman had Barb meet her at the guy's place, that
the shaman guy.
The shaman, thank you. The shaman's place. Like, Barb didn't need to be there. And it was kind of rude to have her there and not explain or tell her anything. Like, they're talking in front of her.
Because Diana can read the book by herself. She can read the language. They could have that scene where they just meet at the library. They didn't need to have that.
But you don't think the shaman would want to be around his books? I mean, people would probably steal it. Those are like ancient books. I wouldn't leave people alone if I had ancient books.
No, I'm just saying, that scene could have been turned into, hey, I found out there's an ancient book that's about all this culture stuff. We should go to the library. I know they got it over there. They don't have it on the digital. You got to go to the library to find it.
But it wasn't a library though. It was like his studio. So it wasn't even a real library. But what I'm saying with Barb, she didn't need to be there. They didn't be like, we can meet you there. They could have literally gotten the address, gone there straight, and it's like, you're not even telling her anything. You're not telling her the truth about who Steve is or anything like that. but you're discussing all of this in front of her, and it's kind of rude. You keep bringing me involved, and it's like you're not even going to tell me what the hell is going on, but then you're going to talk like I'm not even here. So I can see why Bar got a little pissed at her too.
Maybe the 80s were a different social time where it was socially acceptable to do stuff like that.
Well, I'm thinking about the Steve thing too. Steve was a little weird. Not the character. I think Chris Pine did an amazing job. He is the heart of this film. He's great in this movie. And him and Gal Gadot have great chemistry. Every scene they're in I was invested. I was like, I love you guys, especially the invisible jet scene. I didn't know
cool.
I didn't think they could get the invisible jet in a Wonder Woman movie because I've never seen it anywhere else. But they did it. They did it. It was great. But I like the idea that he's in someone else's body.
I kept forgetting that aspect of the movie.
Yeah, I thought it was also a little weird because they kept talking about what Diana was losing, or Diane what she was losing because of her powers. But he also just invaded some person who clearly has a life, who's an engineer and everything like that, and he just took over this body, and it's like, well, where is this guy? Where are all his friends, family, or like coworkers? Like, why is nobody calling 911? And then the world goes into, destruction. Again, does this person have like no loved ones? Was he like dying and like he choked on some, a cinnamon roll and like Steve came and took over the body, or like what?
And then at the end, he's just talking to Diana in his normal body like nothing happened. Like they never met or anything.
Yeah, I mean, this man technically has lost a week of his life, and then he talks about his friends like, oh yeah, they all tease me, and it's like, your friends didn't care about you for like an entire week. They heard nothing from you.
And like, nobody called.
Clearly they're not very good friends. They're making fun of your clothing, your self-esteem, and now they just ignore you, especially when the whole world literally dove in chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just thought that plot point was weird, especially because, okay, let me get this straight. So the stone can turn a person into a cheetah woman. It can make a wall appear out of nowhere from the sands, like miles long, and block off an entire area. It can't bring back somebody from the dead? Are you serious?
Technically, the wall structure
nowhere
was not out of nowhere. I mean, it was from the ground. There was already a base there. And a lot of times, mountains, walls, little structures are pushed up from the wall because of underground water.
Alex, nukes appear out of nowhere. The thing literally do enough engineering to make a fully functional bomb.
But that's also metal. That's not a living being.
Metal doesn't fully formed as a missile, Alex. You can't just mine a mountain.
I'm just saying, it technically doesn't have like a soul. So like it can't, like, it's not creating a body. Cheetah like manipulated her body, manipulated Wonder Woman's body, manipulated Maxwell's body, but technically, and it manipulated the guy. So it's more of a manipulation tool. Remember, it was from the god of lies. So it wasn't actually a creator, it was a manipulator. That's why it couldn't exactly bring a solid body back to life.
Can we continue talking about the stone's power for a second? Because in movies where the genie or whatever grants wishes says you can't wish for more wishes, how come this dude was able to wish to be the stone, but in some scenarios you can't wish for more wishes?
That's because genies have certain rules. This is a magic stone, different rules.
Then why didn't anybody just wish? Then why didn't somebody just wish? I wish the juice powers were. You know where I'm going with it.
Because he manipulated people into wishing.
Yeah, he would say,
"Don't you wish I would have this?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." He's like, "Okay, for that wish, I'm going to take this." But I see what you're saying. Why didn't somebody just revert, like, wish back? Well, actually, when I was watching this movie, I thought of Wishmaster. I was like, oh, this is basically just Wishmaster, which is a horror film from the 80s or early 90s, whatever. And at the end, the woman wishes, after everything has gone wrong, the Wishmaster grants her like 6 wishes or 5 wishes. I can't really recall. She wishes for everything to be back to normal, for everything to be back. And at the beginning, so she's there again. Everybody's alive, nobody's hurt, all this stuff, and then she gets killed because it because when you wish for something, things require a payment, and it required her soul. The moment she made that last wish, it was her soul, even if she wished it back. And there's another movie, Wish Upon, where this girl gets this box, Chinese box. She gets 7 wishes. At the 7 wishes, the demon living in the box takes her soul. She's like, oh, I know how to defeat you. She wishes for things to go back to normal. When they went back to normal, she was killed because it demanded a soul. So even if somebody was like, oh, I just wish for all this to stop. I wish for things to go back to normal. I wish, he never observed the sun. There will still be this payment that is due. And that was the whole thing about, the wishing. You can wish for something, and even if it's granted to you, there's a payment. There's always a cost. And like somebody could wish it back to normal, but like what's going to be the cost on such a global scale like that? What would be the cost to wish everything back?
Plus,
like
that's
whatever
why they said you had to renege your wish. You can't just wish everything to go back to normal. To reverse the stone, you have to renege on what you wish for revoke.
Or renounce.
Renounce.
There we go. That's the right word. Renounce your what you wish for, and then it'll get fixed. So.
Or there was that one guy that was like, I take back my wish.
Yeah.
Apparently that worked as well.
What did you guys think of Pedro Pascal? While we're talking about the wish guy, let's talk about the dude who makes the wishes. Pedro Pascal.
I thought he was good. I was about to bring him up as well. I thought he was really good because he added layers to the role. He wasn't just outright evil for no reason. You could really understand his story, whether or not you agreed with it, which hopefully we all didn't. But you could see his thought process. You could feel the emotional attachment he had to his son, which at the end, I almost got teary-eyed because especially that the son was just, he brought that heartwarming element to it. And
was his son Japanese?
It looked
I don't know. I did think about that, where I was like, your son don't look like you. Are you sure?
At first, I actually didn't recognize the actor, and I thought it was just, a white man wanting power. And then I saw his son, who looked Japanese. I was like, oh, okay, his ex-wife must be. Whatever. And then when I finally recognized him, I'm like, well, wait, he's Spanish. I'm like, but his son solely looks, or at least I think he looks like Japanese. Or Asian, I guess it's abroad. I don't see him as a type to adopt. Doesn't seem very much caring for others, but more so just his blood.
See, that was another thing where I was like, I know that they want me to believe that he cares about his son, but again, we get one scene with his son, and it does not give me enough.
Let me get this straight.
Like,
you're complaining about the length of the movie, and you're saying that these characters are not fleshed out enough.
Yes.
I mean, you were complaining a lot about the time spent on these characters' own storylines.
See, but before they merge. Here's the thing: the problem is that we spend a lot. Like Maxwell Lord travels a lot in this movie. He goes to the oil place. He goes to the president's office. He goes back to his office multiple times. There's a lot of those scenes where I'm like, you can cut some of these 4 scenes.
Well, like
with his son,
he had
not need all of this.
They needed a scene in Syria.
That one was
that was like the start of it all.
The one where he's like talking to the pastor and talking to all that stuff or whatever, that could have been shortened. That scene goes on for a lot longer than it needs to. And I'm just saying that based off of just like, I'm thinking of, most cuts in movies are like 4 or 5 seconds. And those 4 and 5 add up at some point if you just stay there for a while. I would have liked with him and his son instead.
I do see what you're saying, but at the same time, I think the pastor was needed because it did foreshadow his plans of trying to get on a global scale a massive wish of people. And I think he was trying to figure out how to do that. He's like, so if I grab one and another and they're all touching each other in a giant ring, will that, convey it? but I don't think he even was sure, and even the pastor was like, we can, but like I'm not sure. That's kind of weird. How are you gonna make people say I wish instead of like amen or pray or whatever? So I can kind of see that scene being needed, but I think it could have definitely like I don't think they needed another scene with his son, honestly, because I think they needed more scene of showing how people in power came to him and were like asking for things and kind of showing the how more chaos erupted on such a higher like level into corruption that was being shown of how want and desire can take over. With his son, I don't know. I feel like his son ended up becoming like a plot point just for the story, to have him have something to hold on to his like humanity. And honestly, they could have just done that with a wife or a girlfriend or something.
I think they needed to ground him, and that's why they brought the son in. Because
Yeah,
otherwise,
they
we
want
wouldn't
you to
be
like
understanding him. Yeah, we wouldn't be. We'd be like, screw this guy. They could. All they have to do is destroy him, and then everything would go back to normal.
Yeah, I think they're trying to like paint it that way, but honestly, I didn't feel that much sympathy even with his kid around, because like I think that's more so playing on like the older generation's emotions, or people with kids like, oh yeah, I would give up everything for my kid. Be like, no, you know what? His dad's neglectful. Sure, they love each other, but his dad's neglectful. He's not a very good role model. He's not a good parent. Like, what is his son gonna miss? Honestly.
And to piggyback off of that, what you said actually is maybe what I was missing, is that it doesn't feel like I would care more if it felt like he was doing it for his son. But It doesn't feel like he's doing any of this for his son. He's doing this for himself and his son. So when he's like, oh, I just want you to be proud of me, son, or whatever, I'm like, do you? Because you haven't talked to him really at all half of this adventure, even when you got the powers. Like, you saw him one time and you snapped at him when he wished that you would spend more time with him. And then that's it. And then you were off back again to get more power, but you haven't really like had a convo with your son on that level of like, are you proud of me, son? Do you like what I'm doing? What do you think?
Even when they first introduce his son, he's just like, oh yeah, like we're gonna have the pool, we're gonna have the helicopter, and he's trying to pretend it's for his son, but you can clearly tell that's what he wants. When his son's like, yeah, I just want to hang out with you. Well, we'll hang out when we have all this stuff already. It's like the son has made it clear, like, I don't care. And also, like, when he's speaking to his son, he keeps saying my greatness. He doesn't say our greatness, our legacy. He says my greatness is your greatness. But then he's talking about his legacy, his power, his control. He never once, in a lot of movies, when it's portraying the parental, the father, son, daughter, mother, whatever, it's always like, I'm doing this for us. I'm creating our legacy. I'm creating our world, our kingdom, building that up for us. And then they're like, oh, why didn't you do that? We just needed each other. He doesn't do that at all. There's only one point he says that. The rest of the time he's like, oh, it's my greatness, my legacy, my power, my control, my wishes and stuff like that. And even the son's like, yeah, I wish for your greatness too, because that's clearly what you want. It's not even our world. It's hidden under, the mask of like, I'm doing this for my son and me, our buildings, our power. But he clearly says, my greatness, my, kingdom, basically. Yeah. So I think even from the beginning, they don't properly establish this connection and relationship he has with his son. And I think that's a lot of lackluster, and why I loved him playing the character. I thought it was a good character. I thought he is a very excellent actor. I love the way he was slowly dying. And even, I don't know, I think they could have shown it a little more. His skin was actually turning into stone because he had wished to be the stone. So his skin had started to get this like charcoal residue. He was paling, but parts of him had turned into a charcoal residue. I think I would have liked to see that more, like he would turn more into stone.
Yeah, I noticed that when he was on the plane.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like, I think that would have been like such a better development too. But like, I feel like they made his storyline end far much sooner.
That's my dad, y'all, by the way. Video, I'm sorry.
Hi.
That's the parent.
There we go. That's the parrot. So I think they could have given him more a tighter relationship with his son, enough to like show that like, oh yeah, I would give up everything for them in the end. Or they could have definitely like done more with makeup. I think they had a really, really great character, and they didn't do enough with it. And they had a really great actor, and they didn't do enough with it. He has range. He's really cool.
He's very charismatic. I
He's
loved
very
him when he did especially when his first introduction comes in. I was like, oh, this guy's gonna be great. When he's like, the world's good, but it could be better. I was like,
Yeah.
that's it right there. That's it.
Yeah, that's another thing. He's very charismatic, which plays a lot to that character. Because
Yeah.
that character's all about charisma. They're like, oh yeah, we believe you because you look, you look happy, you look powerful. Really, he's just a sad dude. So
if there's two lessons that I learned from this movie, one, support small businesses. Don't let corporate America grant your wish, because then you're just going to be supporting the billionaires. They're going to be able to control the world.
I mean,
Support small businesses. It happened already, but and two, this is why everybody can't get what they want, because it's too conflicting. If everybody got their wish, this world, we don't know what would happen in this world. So it's an unfortunate revelation, but it's true.
I wanted to say one last thing, mostly in revolving to the message of this movie, of not only careful what you wish for, but also there are no shortcuts to greatness, to being who you want to be, or getting the things out of life that you want to get out of them. And I respect that message, even though it is kind of weird that there is a moment where Diana almost basically looks at camera and is just like, hey, you audience, I'm talking to you specifically. Here's the lesson of this movie. But like I said, it's like a Saturday morning cartoon.
She just puts on her cardigan, basically.
But I liked it. But it reminded me, like, going through the movie and my few issues with the movie, it reminded me a lot of Tomorrowland with George Clooney.
Oh, where it was heavy with message.
Well, because that movie has a great message too that I really love, of like not giving up. If you have a dream, go for it. Maybe it will take a little bit longer than you expected, and maybe it'll be hard, but never give up. And I like that message. But that movie too had pacing issues. And I feel like, this movie, for me personally, had a few pacing issues. I still enjoy it. I still like it. Again, beautifully filmed. I've never seen such beautiful colors in a superhero movie in a long time. And thank you for that, Patty Jenkins, because we've gotten a lot of dark superhero movies as of late. Things have been very dark in the superhero world. I don't know what that's about.
Thor Ragnarok was nothing but
Thor
colors.
Ragnarok's probably the last one. Thor Ragnarok's the last one that was really colorful and bright and happy.
Well, I feel like Shazam was too.
Did Shazam come out before Thor or after Thor?
I thought it was after.
I never watched that one because it kind of creeps me out.
It creeps you out? How?
Because a child looks like an adult. And there's always this.
Because the adult is actually a child.
And then like there's always like somebody attracted to it, but then it's attracted to the character and is like, but he's supposed to also be playing a child. I don't know. It just weirds me out on like certain levels. So like I never watched it.
To be fair, I don't think anyone ever hits on Shazam in the Shazam movie.
Oh yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think they ever have.
I think the reason
hey,
it like
he's just like,
well, think of it like the movie Big.
I was just about to say.
Yeah, that was the one where I was like, this woman is gonna wait for this 13-year-old boy to grow up.
Which creeped me the hell out. So I mean, if there's no adult woman hitting, they didn't make an adult woman hit on him. When then maybe I'll give it more of a chance, and I judge because there have been movies like that where they make them grow older, and like all of a sudden they're hitting on like 13 going on 30 too. That technically a 30-year-old woman was a 13-year-old, and it was like, no, thank you. I did enjoy that movie, but those are
just my final thoughts on Wonder Woman 84. I still like the movie. I still think is a fun time. If you want to watch something for Christmas to have just a good old time and enjoy yourself, like a Saturday morning cartoon, or even like watching like some of the Richard, it even gave me feels of the old Richard Donner Supermans from back in the 80s. So if you
Really?
want that feel, like
Did you guys watch the post-credit scene? Or the
yes,
right?
And-
if you're talking
and
about
thank
old feels.
God, they got Linda Carter back. Yeah.
Yeah. No, like that scene, I like stopped. I held my breath. I was like, one, she looks amazing. Two,
Yeah.
that whole scene was just like, that's Linda Carter's character. That is Linda Carter there. And so
I love
she's
they tied
always
it into the story too of
Yeah.
her being Mysteria.
Yeah. And I always love Linda Carter because she's Spanish, she's Latin, she's Mexican. So she's a great role model to have when I was growing up, knowing that Wonder Woman, the actress, was Mexican, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. I really love that. Representation right there. I will say we didn't talk a lot about Wonder Woman or Steve during this podcast, and I think because their characters were like really well done and written, and I think I had no issues with Steve. I thought it was adorable. He was so fascinated. And unlike like Steve Rogers, when he came to like basically the present time, he was so against adapting at times. He was so against like, well, why did this need to be fixed? Or, why can't I still use this? Or why can I do this? Steve was just like, cool, this is different. The man was eating Pop-Tarts in bed. I mean,
yeah, it was very much. I like that fish out of water aspect. Like he had the elf moment, the Will Ferrell elf moment when he's on the escalator and he doesn't know how to get on it.
But he was just excited, and I love that about the Steve when he came into the future or present was technically it's our anyway. Was that
future, our past.
Yeah, he wasn't afraid. He wasn't concerned. He was like, holy crap, look at everything, and like I want to experience it all. When a lot of characters who have shown in like superhero movies, when their old love comes back, they want to stay hidden in the past. But Steve was like, nope, this is the future. It's great, and like you need to experience it because it's great. And like, yeah, like that's what I loved about this character. It was a fish out of water element, but he was just so excited to be out of the water. He was so excited to try everything, and I think that was just a wonderful way to look at it. Like, because I love time travel movies and things like that, and time travel. When the traveler tends to go in the past or the future, they're excited to experience, these new things. And like, I'm always disappointed when they like unfreeze somebody and they're like, well, why did this change? Why can't I still use this? Why can't I do this? Why is everything more complicated?
Living right now.
Yeah. It was the whole, I want to live in the moment, and him being like, you need to live in the moment.
Like, I like the reverse of it being the reverse of Diana's fish out of water experience too, because in the first movie Diana knows nothing about the world of man. She's only ever been on Paradise Island, so for her everything is brand spanking new, versus for Steve it's not that everything's brand new, it's that everything is futuristic. And so for him it was a slightly different take on it that I haven't seen before, where he's like when he sees the fashion, he isn't like, oh, this is strange, this is dumb. Like, he's just like, oh, all right, pants have parachutes now? They have parachute pants now? All right.
I love how excited he was for the zippers.
Yeah.
When he wore the pants with all the zippers. He's like, look how many zippers I have. He was super excited. I was like, yeah, dude, jump into that fashion. Although the person who was, body took over, had terrible fashion.
It's the 80s. Everybody
Diane didn't, and like Kristen Wiig characters technically didn't until she turned evil, and then she started wearing. Her outfits were fantastic. Yes, she looked great, and when she did transition into that more sexy character, she did it well. It wasn't this like poofy, 80s dress you see in those like ridiculous like prom or formal movies. It was an actual stylish dress that if somebody wore today, it would still be fashionable and great.
Yeah.
So like, see, it can be done. That's more realistic fashion than what they had. But like, what I'm saying is like, they did so well with those characters. I don't feel a lot of criticism for either one. And they properly do have their development throughout this movie. and I don't ever feel like there's suddenly a change or jump in character, which I think is very rare when in a superhero film. Because in a superhero film, often more so than not that I've seen, is that the superheroes tend to have this random flip of a switch. Like in Batman versus Superman, the two characters who were battling all of a sudden bonded over
Martha!
Martha, which was like seriously over a name. Like that's all it took. They should have just read a baby book name together, and eventually you would have hit another one. Jerome, don't hide your face. So like, yeah. So yeah, they were so like well, spaced out in their development that it didn't seem like all of a sudden, oh, the switch had been flipped.
Mhm.
It was well done, unlike a lot of the DC movies I've seen where they're just, especially, oh my god, for like Suicide Squad. That movie, all of a sudden they go from like, screw you all to, we're family. I'm going to die for you. It's like you had one beer together.
I agree. I think the characters were well written. Their dynamic was great, especially in a superhero movie. You want to be able to root for the main characters, and that cannot be said for all superhero films, unfortunately. And the fact that they were rootable, the fact that they had good chemistry on screen made my experience more enjoyable. And especially because they were more prevalent, Steve and Diana, they were, because halfway through the movie, I feel like Steve disappears again. So the fact that they were more so towards the beginning, I felt like it set up well for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. Gal Gadot in this movie reminds me of Thor, Chris Hemsworth as Thor in Thor Ragnarok, because for a long time, even though Chris Hemsworth was great in the role, it took him a while to establish that character as like his own for a minute because he was so new. So it's like he's pretty much just doing what the director tells him to. And it feels like Thor Ragnarok was the first time where it's like, no, Chris Hemsworth undoubtedly forever is Thor. And so Gal Gadot in this movie, because I feel like in Wonder Woman, she's doing the role and she's doing it well. In this movie, in Wonder Woman 84, Gal Gadot is Wonder Woman. Like she is in the role. She is perfect as that character. And I'd love to see more movies with her as Wonder Woman. I hope she does it for as long as she can. Also, we were talking about Kristen Wiig's outfits, by Diana's outfits and hair on point everywhere she goes. It's incredible. I was like, girl, you done got that blowout. Do you just stop at the cosmetologist everywhere you go before you take a trip? Her hair would just be floating. It's so big. She got that nice, flowy, big 80s hair. It just looked great. It looked great. I appreciate a good
I think they just made those two characters really well in this movie, and they really focused on them. I think they ended up letting the side characters fall a little bit, the villains. But they did so well with the main ones. It's like you're not that bothered by it. You enjoy it. And it does have a lightheartedness that's just enjoyable.
Someone who I wanted to see more in the film, Natasha Rothwell, who played the black woman at the beginning who didn't know Barbara's name, the boss. She was in it for like one scene, and I saw her name at the beginning of the movie, and I'm like, oh, she's in this. Oh shoot, because she plays Kelly on Insecure. And
I think if anything, that character should have gotten hit. Like no. Like Kristen Wiig got upset by her because she didn't remember her name. Like, you introduced me and you hired me. Like, I feel like she didn't really, because a lot of those like characters, when they develop the power, they take revenge on people who like piss them off, and it's like all of a sudden like she's nice to her again. So it's like, oh, well, her purpose wasn't really needed. I feel like if she still hadn't been affected, she could have had more interest or more to the role than she was given. She was in there for like what, 2 scenes?
I think so. 2 or 3.
Felt like one. Okay, 2, 3. Yeah.
Two. I think 2. I only recall 2.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. They could have done like more with that. But
I honestly
I agree.
think they could the biggest thing they could have done for this movie is if they were gonna do two, they had to like, and they choose to focus more on Maxwell Lord's story, is find a way to make those characters be connected instead of being separated, where Barbara's doing her own thing, Maxwell Lord's doing his own thing. I think the movie would have flowed faster, flowed better, and would have maybe like allowed us to have more of those moments, like with I'm sorry, what was her name again? Natasha Rockwell, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like where it's like if Maxwell Lord and Cheetah were like together, not in like a relationship, but rather just like they work together closer, especially because he comes in there and they immediately meet. They're the first two to meet together. So it would have been cool if they had maybe been a lot more tied together, and it would have allowed the movie to not have to divert so much time to both of them separately, and they could just like work together. If they were going to do both villains, I personally think this movie would have worked with just one.
I think they should have introduced them together a little bit sooner, because like already destruction has happened, and then all of a sudden they're like, then they kind of join forces. I think a little bit earlier on, had they joined forces, maybe would have made them, and like him slowly giving her more and more power would have made her transition feel a little more real. Like, oh, what do you want? Oh, I want more strength. What do you want? More speed, like a cheetah, and that's when she could have start seeing like that, because they were around a lot of like artifacts and stuff, so she could have been like, I want to be like that. But really it was just all of a sudden she turned into a furry.
Cheetah woman.
She looked like a furry.
No, she did. I don't know. I'm not arguing
She
with your
looks
point.
like it's either a furry or the human
furry.
version of the Thundercatch.
Also, and I meant to look this up, so I'm sorry, audience, that I did not do my full research. But was most of this shot on film? Because
sure,
I noticed the quality was a lot different than most movies I watch, and I was wondering why I felt so transported to the 80s while watching it. And I'm going to look this up afterwards, and I don't know, I might mention it on our next podcast, or I might forget about it completely. But I want to see if it was shot on film, because I feel like it might have been. Or something other than the standard quality at which they
IMAX, I can't remember if it was filmed in IMAX or formatted for IMAX. I can't remember.
Maybe.
Oh, no, it was shot entirely on film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just looked it up.
IMAX film or just normal film?
Yeah, give me a second.
Because IMAX uses film too.
For sure.
Because I was like, oh, why does
so it was filmed on both, but the IMAX film was only used when showing the wide shots of locations.
Oh, okay.
So only when they had the wide shots or they were coming in, things like that. The rest was done on film, on the RRI Flex 235 film.
Yeah, the RE Flex.
And then the Panaflex film. And then for the location shots that were widespan and coming in were the IMAX MSM with Panvision Primo Glass.
Gotcha.
Okay. Because I noticed the bit of graininess, and I'm like, this screams 80s to me. So I think that's what they were going for. They were,
They had that more vibe. There's also, I think, a distinct like color change when you use film to when you're using like HD and stuff. I have like noticed that. So I think they were able to portray like 80s colors a little more real. Because when you do like the HD style in 80s film, it's just really vibrant and like attacks the eyes. And that's where you get that like, oh, the 80s were gaudy and like gross to like highlighter style. But this one seemed like all the colors fit. They're still very vibrant, but they're not as intense, and they don't make you think, oh, this is the, stereotypic 80s. So I think, but you're right. It was filmed on film and IMAX as well for like without people in it.
Right. Cool. Well, any last thoughts on Wonder Woman? Let's do our grading. It's time before the grading.
Oh,
I've
when I
talked a
left
lot.
school, I would.
Alex, you go ahead.
Okay.
I feel like I've talked a
what's your
lot
letter
too.
grade, Alex?
I would say an A to A minus. Like I said, loved Wonder Woman, Steve in this. I think they were both really well developed and everything, and they did it. I love Maxwell Lord and everything like that. His relationship with his son was not my favorite. I think they could have done more or just scratched the son completely. Kristen Wiig, I think, was not the right actress for this role, but it also may have just been the role as well because, like Jerome had said, she was very, or was it you? One of you guys said that she was very good in the beginning, in which she was. She played that character extremely well, but the moment she turned into her apex predator side, she just didn't. It didn't feel real. It felt like an SNL skit where she was attempting at being badass, and really, it was just like you could see the falseness, and I guess that kind of is what the character was portraying, but I didn't think it was well done. And then the whole like cheetah thing, I mean, it was just weird. So like A to A minus just because I did enjoy everything else, but the villains nearing the end I felt could have been better for the movie that it was. So
Cool. I would have to say around that same range. I say maybe A minus to B plus. I know I brought up a lot of questions, but those didn't really tamper or dampen my enjoyment of the movie. Like I've said, I really enjoyed probably the first 75% of the movie. The last 25% was still enjoyable, but not as much as those like establishing moments. I really liked how they set the tone of the 80s. I loved the fact that they added a little bit of comedy in it, even as far as getting like comedic actors into the movie, like Kristen Wiig and Natasha Rothwell for the 2.5 seconds that she was in it. But adding those elements to it, I think, made for more dynamic superhero movie than the ones that we normally see. And I really appreciate that thought of it. I just want to see something different in the superhero movies. I'd love to see a coming of age superhero movie. I'd love to see a horror superhero movie. Just combine the genres all together, and it just makes for something different to watch.
I think there was one, Brightburn, wasn't that? I didn't like that. That was so slow and boring.
There's Brightburn. New Mutants tried to be a horror superhero movie.
A
I
musical
watched
superhero movie.
New Mutants was like literally I watched 10 minutes and I was so bored. They did no good pacing with that film. They were just like I didn't bother with it. But I see what you're saying. Like there was such a comedy, romance, superhero, everything kind of going on that it kind of led more to like, oh, this is more fun and enjoyable compared to especially how DC has presented its films. They're just unnecessarily dark sometimes. Like even the coloring, like when I watched like Batman Begins, I had a hard time seeing the movie because I have really terrible eyes, and it was such a dark, literal and lighting dark film that I actually had genuine problems seeing because I do have such bad stigmatism that colors get messed up for me. So it's like the fact that the superhero films are now getting better lighting, I guess I could say, is more enjoyable. So yeah, I could see where you're coming from regarding like the mixing of genres. It doesn't always have to be a downer.
Yeah.
What about you, Jerome?
All right, Jerome.
I was bouncing between like and it sounds harsher than it actually is, but B minus to C plus. I wasn't sure which one I wanted to pick. And the reason why is because there's a lot of things I really like about this movie. I love the colors. I have the very rare, especially right now, because we have so many superhero movies. It's very rare to see a superhero movie that's willing to be like, hey, we're going to make it colorful. Like, it's not just going to be muted color like the Marvel movies. It's not going to be super dark and drab like the old DC movies. Like, it's bright, beautiful colors. I love Gal Gadot and Chris Pine. I think they do an amazing job, and they have great chemistry with each other. And I think Patty Jenkins' direction is really well. She knows how to make Wonder Woman look cool, but she's whipping across the lightning with the lasso and stuff. Like that stuff like I've never seen before.
No.
Eat your heart out, Black Widow. I hate you. Anyway, the point, I don't want no Black Widow movie, all right? When movies like this, when Wonder Woman can do stuff like that, I don't want to see a woman just jump out.
Jerome, you're gonna get it.
I don't care. Come at me. I don't care.
What kind of another topic? Continue with your
you're gonna
grading.
get the Black Widow movie, not you're gonna get it for not liking Black Widow.
Oh well, whatever.
I think both. I think both.
Probably both.
But
Go on.
there's so much I like about this movie, but at the same time, the pacing doesn't quite work for me. Only in the middle, because I feel like it tries to get itself back in gear near the ending of the movie with the cheetah fight, and even with her, confronting Maxwell Lord. I like that it's an emotional confrontation, not so much a I'm going to punch you in the face. Very rarely do we see in superhero movies superheroes that kind of handle their problems through talking as opposed to just like beating up the bad guy. But it's just, and then on top of that, Cheetah and Maxwell Lord, I feel like Maxwell Lord more so, I feel like he's more well realized, like Alex was saying. I think just a few tweaks to his character and his relationship with his son, I think could have made him more compelling. But I think Pedro Pascal does a really good job of still working with the material and still making this character compelling and interesting and charismatic, and you still feel where he's coming from. It just doesn't hit for me as emotional as I think they wanted it to land. But Kristen Wiig, I feel like, I agree. I don't think she was right for this role. I think she does the best she can given her acting style and the way she does things. But they don't really give her a lot of comedy stuff to do after the first 15 minutes of the movie. Once they start getting into the plot of her slowly turning into Cheetah, she just switches to a drama character. Like it's all more or less being taken seriously. And so I feel like that's where kind of her weaknesses are in this movie in particular, because she has to not only be dramatic, she has to be evil, and being villainous is not the same as being serious. So so those things for me detract from the movie. And so I think I land at about a B+. I still think the movie is a good time. I still think if you're a fan of Wonder Woman, you're going to enjoy this movie, whether it be the comics or the movie or the Linda Carter TV show. I think it'll be a good time for you to watch it. It has action, it has adventure, it has laughs, and it's just a really, nice movie. And it gives me the same feels I kind of had watching Shazam, where I'm like, is this my number one superhero movie? No. But is it a good superhero movie that if I'm like, you know what, I want to watch a nice, heartwarming superhero movie, I'm going to put this on. I'm going to definitely put this on.
You want to watch something... I put down my mic because my cat was yelling. You want to watch something that's just going to end... it's going to end heartwarming, but there's still going to be some battle in the end. You're going to feel warm inside.
Exactly.
Snowball agrees.
She does.
You know what it is? Snowbell she's missing all three of us being in the same room together. She's like, I feel
she's missing trying to steal your guys' chicken nuggets.
Yeah, that too.
But
those are my finals. So B+ is where I think I'm landing at.
You know what I find interesting?
That's what I meant to say.
This is the first film I have graded higher than both of you. Usually I'm grading lower than you two. This is the first time I have graded higher.
I wonder if we're gonna keep that same
I don't
trend
know,
in
because
2021.
Both of y'all graded higher than me on Fantasy Island. I gave that a straight F.
Because I found that fun. That was a stupid, not a good movie, but it was fun. And I
think
thought
I also graded that low too.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't actually grade them like A's or B's.
Right.
Or I think we both gave them like a D or C.
I think it was C and D.
I think it was C and D.
And I went F.
But that movie we have so much nostalgia with because it was one of the last movies that we were able to see.
It was the last movie we saw in theaters. Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, it was.
I'm thankful that because I looked back on it, and the last movie I actually saw in theaters, I watched after work one day. I watched Parasite at SIF.
Ooh.
So thankfully, I can have that as the last movie I saw in theaters. I don't have to have Fantasy Island as the last one I saw.
Technically, the last movie we saw in theaters was Unhinged. It was a drive-in theater.
Oh, this is
wasn't
true.
quite-
That doesn't count. That doesn't count. And also, I didn't like the movie Parasite. Like,
Yeah,
I feel like
we talk about this
we
last
discussed it.
podcast. I feel like
We talked about this in a podcast because I'm like,
we discussed this in our horror movie. I was just listening to it.
I don't think it's a horror film. It's not a horror film. It's definitely a thriller and a
It's a thriller.
suspense.
Oh
but
no,
not
we
a
just
horror
brought it
film.
up and we got off topic and started talking about Parasite.
Well,
I
we
don't
do
think we
have-
ever said it was a horror movie.
Well, we might
Well,
make a
it's labeled
Parasite
as one.
retrospective
But
one
anyway.
day.
We might go
Nonetheless.
back to movies that shouldn't be in the genre that they should be in. That they are in, I mean. Either way, Wonder Woman, great film. Wonder Woman
Yes.
84. I think people should just watch it, enjoy it. Try not to critique it too much. Sometimes I think critiquing does take away from the enjoyment of the film. And during these times of just 2020, I think people just need some, warmth in their life that things can get better. Because in that movie, the world is in chaos, and a lot of it is due to people's selfish reasoning. And sadly, that is a lot of what's going on in our world today. Is a lot of people's selfish desires are causing things to get a little bit worse. So, just remembering that, like, we all have to be in this together, or we're all just going to fail. So hopefully maybe this movie will just inspire people like, maybe I shouldn't put my own desires first above every single person in the world. Who knew?
Well, that is a great point to wrap up on, Alex.
That's a message from Alex. That's a message.
Yes.
See, I can be nice and sweet too. I don't just yell at Jerome.
Let's everyone take that energy into 2021. Maybe put someone's desires before yours, and you might be rewarded for it. Who knows? But if you're not, then you still did a good thing. So 2021, let's all be better.
New Year's. That's
Yes.
the next.
Yeah, New Year's.
Speaking of our next topic, next week we're coming at you with we're gonna look back and look forward. We're going to be talking about the year that was and the year that will be. We'll be looking forward to our
hopes,
Alex.
dreams.
We're going to be mostly looking forward. Okay, let's be real. We're going to be looking forward at the films and all of the stuff that we're looking forward to watching in 2021. Everything that's been announced, at least, because who knows in these times.
Yeah, who knows.
Lizzie McGuire, rest in peace. So with that being said, you can follow us on Instagram at The First Ones to Die, TikTok at The First Ones to Die. You can email us.
Pretty much the name's all the same except for like Twitter, right?
Yeah, Twitter is First Ones to Die without the, but that's easy enough to remember. Where can we follow you guys at, Alex?
I'm at Living My Okayest Life on Instagram. I do have a Twitter, but I've never really been on it. So find me on Instagram more so than anything.
Jerome?
You can follow me at Not Jerome Rhett on Instagram. Also, still working on RoboZoo Media at Instagram as well. So, check me out. Gonna be posting some stuff up there soon. So if you follow, but there's nothing up there, be patient. It's coming. But Not Jerome Red is my main Instagram account. So if you want to hear some, also, I do a lot of the music for this channel. So if you want to hear some leftover beats that didn't quite make the cut, but they're up there, that's on Instagram for you. So there you go. Little Christmas present for you, the people.
And Jonathan?
Cool. And I am at Jonathan Keys. We will see you all in the new year.
Bye. Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year's. Bye-bye.
Happy New Year's. And I hope you had a Merry Christmas as well.
Yes. Or whatever holiday you celebrate.
That's right. Kwanzaa, Hanukkah.
Yes.
I don't know. Boxing Day.
Ramadan.
There we go.
There you go.
Bye.
See ya.
Later.